A robot's going to take all of our jobs. I'm Cardiff, Garcia of FT Alphaville. I'm joined by Kaminska. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Izzy, you've been writing about this for about a year now. And basically, what we're all worried about is whether or not technology is now replacing jobs at a historically higher rate. So, take a look at this chart right here. So, this shows the share of national income going to profits versus labor, right? So, what this essentially shows is that there's been a big divergence in roughly the last 10 years. And this can be explained by a few things: globalization, cheap labor in China, things like that. But technology is one possibility. So you combine that with median income stagnating and things like that, and it's now a very real worry. So what do you think is going on now?
Technology is progressing so quickly, the rate is almost exponential, that you haven't got the time to capture the profit. And that leads us into interesting sort of scenarios, and also specifically what's happening with labour. So we're going from an involuntary labour unemployment rate to possibly a kind of voluntary labour situation.
Yeah, and that's a point that I think you've made a lot in the past, is that it's no longer just manufacturing or factory jobs. It's now that technology is replacing even jobs that require very heavy cognitive load, you know, people that were well trained, well educated, that sort of thing. So what are some examples of this kind of thing happening?
Exactly. So it's not just like what happened with the Luddites and the mechanical jobs. We're seeing journalistic jobs being replaced by algorithms, finance, traders, all gone because of HFT, etc. You've got medical industry. That's really a big one, I would say, where diagnostic tools and surgical devices, you know, they are eliminating, you know, really top-level academic jobs. Robots that, you know, do mine disposal, all sorts of things. And it's also not just that, it's the smartphones and the way general employment is being impacted by productivity rates that we don't really understand yet.
Let me very quickly kind of introduce a little bit of skepticism to this trend, because as you know, I'm a little bit more agnostic about this, I think, than you are. So I guess I have a couple of worries. One is that in terms of data gathering, it's very difficult to measure these kinds of trends. And the second is that it's true that we've had like a couple of jobless recoveries in the US. We've also had very weak recoveries, and maybe we just need more growth rather than worrying about technology. So what do you think about that?
Or we're having the growth, but we're measuring it incorrectly. Like, perhaps we have to change the way we measure GDP, because GDP doesn't actually capture the improvements in standard of living.
Let's talk a little bit more about what this future might look like. Here's a chart from Martin Ford that I think is very simple but also very powerful. So it shows the point at which he calls the machines becoming autonomous, but we can say when machines start to exceed humans' actual cognitive capacity.
The singularity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at this point, it becomes a problem not just for the people who lose their jobs, but for the entire modern economy, which would be completely upended. Because the problem is that right now, it's all driven by sort of final consumer demand. But if nobody has a job, then you're not going to have the income for it. So income, the way income is distributed, has to be decided differently. And I think the problem here that a lot of us are going to be suspicious of is that it's going to require centralizing authority, call it socialism, redistribution, whatever. I think a lot of us would be worried about it. So what do you think is a reasonable?
It becomes a political question. But then perhaps the solution lies in the technology itself. Perhaps rather than focusing on socialism or capitalism, why not automate government?
Yeah, well listen, if we're all going to lose our jobs, I think the politicians should probably lose theirs. On the other end of the spectrum, though, is the sort of Kevin Kelly argument, which is that actually there will still be jobs available for humans. It's just that we're going to have to learn to work alongside the robots, be creative, be flexible, that kind of thing. That strikes me as a little bit too optimistic, but I think it's more, people would find that to be more hopeful.
It's kind of the vision of the post-capital economy where everybody's collaborative, where jobs are voluntary, and you know, we're free from labor. We're not having to work every day. Therefore, it's the opportunity to create, in many ways, a renaissance again, a new creative burst for humanity.
All right, well maybe we shouldn't be too afraid anyways, because as Scott Adams likes to say, we're all just moist robots in the first place. So anyways, we're going to put a lot of links that were referenced in this video over at ft.com/Alphaville. So if you're not watching us at the site, come and check us out. Thanks very much.